Clara Whitmore walked into Brass Tack on West Randolph with her hair in a messy bun and not a trace of foundation on her face. The hostess's eyes did that thing, the microsecond scan that said not dressed for this place. Clara was used to it. The restaurant hummed with the specific soundtrack of money, silverware on imported plates, conversations kept at that volume that said we matter, the clink of craft cocktails and artisan glassware. She'd chosen this. No armor, no performance. Just the faint scar above her left eyebrow from where she'd hit her head on a scaffold 3 years ago, back when she still had a career worth risking her neck for. "Reservation under Cole," Clara said. The hostess's smile tightened. "Right this way." The corner booth was prime real estate. Exposed brick wall, Edison bulbs casting warm light, a view of the open kitchen where tattooed line cooks worked station fires. Adrian Cole stood as she approached, tall, maybe 6 feet 2 inches. Charcoal Tom Ford suit, with no tie, white shirt open at the collar, the kind of calm that came from never having to raise your voice to be heard. His handshake was firm. "Clara, that's me." She waited for it, the flicker of disappointment, the barely concealed scan for imperfections. "You look like you just came from doing something real." Clara blinked. "Excuse me?" "Most people who come here," he gestured vaguely at the room, "they look like they spent 3 hours preparing to look like they didn't prepare. You look like you had a day." Her jaw tightened. "Was this a test?" "I did. Construction site in Bridgeport. Community garden project. Volunteer work." "That why you've got—" He pointed at his own eyebrow. Clara touched the scar instinctively. "Old injury, scaffold incident, occupational hazard of, I used to be an urban designer." The past tense still tasted like failure. "Now I consult. Freelance. When the work comes," outside, the blue line screamed past on elevated tracks. That metallic shriek every Chicagoan knew by heart. The restaurant windows rattled in their frames. The waiter appeared. Adrian ordered Blanton's bourbon, neat. Clara asked for an old style. Adrian's mouth quirked. "Chicago beer." "I'm a Chicago girl. We don't do pretense well." She met his eyes, challenging. "So tell me, why'd you agree to this blind date? Your friend Sarah made it sound like pulling teeth on my end." Sarah's persistent." He leaned back. "And I figured, worst case, I get to meet someone interesting. Best case, same thing." Clara felt the weight of eyes from nearby tables. A woman in a Burberry trench 2 booths over was staring at her hair, at her bare face. Clara's hand wanted to reach up, smooth the flyaways, perform the ritual of making herself smaller. She kept her hands on the table instead. "Let me guess," Clara said. "Suit, corner booth, $40 bourbon. You're used to a certain aesthetic. I'm clearly not it." "You're making assumptions." "I'm making observations." Her voice stayed even. "Men like you have types." "Like me?" "Successful. Comfortable. Used to getting what you want." Adrian studied her for a long moment. The L rumbled past again, right on schedule. 7 minutes between trains during evening rush. "You know what I see?" he said quietly. "Someone who decided to show up honest. That's rarer than you think." Something cracked in Clara's chest. Just slightly. Just enough to scare her. In this world where first impressions are currency and authenticity feels like a luxury most can't afford, some moments change trajectories in ways you don't see coming. These events are inspired by the patterns of real life, but every name and detail here belongs to the imagination. She took a pull of her old style. The beer was cold, cheap, perfect. "You always this direct with strangers?" "Only when they interest me." Adrian's gray eyes didn't waver. "So tell me about the project that gave you that scar, the one you used to design for." Clara's hand tightened around the beer bottle. The condensation made her palm cold and wet. He had no idea what he was asking. But God help her, she wanted to tell him. They'd moved to the Riverwalk after dinner, November wind coming off Lake Michigan like it had a personal vendetta. Clara's arms were bare. She'd worn a flannel shirt over a tank top, practical layers for a construction site, not a date. And within 30 seconds of hitting the outdoor walkway, she was regretting it. Adrian shrugged off his suit jacket without a word, draped it over her shoulders. "I didn't ask." "I know." He rolled up his shirt sleeves. "Consider it borrowed, not charity." The jacket smelled like cedar and something expensive she couldn't name. Italian wool, soft against her bare arms, she wanted to hate how good it felt. They walked past tourists, taking selfies with the city lights reflecting off the river's black surface. A tour boat chugged by, the guide's voice crackling through speakers about Chicago architecture and the Great Fire of 1871. Clara had heard the spiel 1,000 times. So, Adrian's hands were in his pockets. The scar, the project. Clara stopped at the railing, gripped the cold metal. The wind whistled through the structure, That specific sound that came from air moving through urban canyons and over water. The South Loop Community Revitalization Project, she said. That was my big break. 28 months of work. I was lead designer for Hartman & Associates, one of the most respected urban planning firms in Chicago, and she could still see the renderings. Brick facades restored, community courtyards, green space where kids could actually play. 47 families were living in those buildings when we started. Her voice stayed clinical, the only way she could talk about it. We promised them priority placement when renovations finished. We held community meetings every month. I knew those people. Dora Martinez lived there 40 years, made me tamales every time I showed up. Her grandson called me Miss Clara, the building lady. The L rumbled overhead on the Wabash Bridge, drowning out everything for 10 seconds. Clara waited for it to pass. Then Blackridge Holdings bought the project. Adrian's posture shifted, just slightly. His jaw tightened. Clara didn't notice. She was staring at the water. It was supposed to be a funding partnership, Clara continued. Capital to finish construction. Instead, they gutted everything, fired half the team. Affordable units became luxury lofts. Market rate went from $1,200 to $3,800 a month. Not a single original resident qualified to move back. Her knuckles were white on the railing. When the community pushed back, protests, media coverage, Blackridge's PR machine threw me under the bus, said I'd misrepresented project scope, promised things outside my authority. Clara's laugh was bitter. They had lawyers, documentation, press releases ready to go. I had nothing. Just my word against a billion-dollar company. Jesus, Adrian said quietly. Hartman fired me to distance themselves from the scandal. Other firms wouldn't touch me. Too much liability. My name became toxic. She finally looked at him. So yeah, that's why I consult on community gardens instead of designing buildings. Because I tried to do the right thing and it destroyed me. The wind picked up. Clara pulled his jacket tighter, hating that she needed it. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. Did you ever find out who made the call? At Blackridge? You mean which faceless executive signed off on screwing over 47 families? Clara shook her head. That's how companies like that work. No one person is responsible. It's all board decisions and market pressures and corporate doublespeak. The CEO probably never even saw the project details. Just another line item on a quarterly report. Adrian's hand tightened on the railing beside hers. That must make it harder, not having anyone to hold accountable. You have no idea. The words came out more vulnerable than she'd intended. But hey, that's America, right? Work hard, play by the rules, get crushed by people with more money and better lawyers. A siren wailed in the distance. Ambulance or police, the soundtrack of the city at night. Tour boats motored past, their wakes slapping against the concrete embankment below. For what it's worth, Adrian said, they were wrong about you. Clara wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. You don't even know me. And I know you spent your Saturday volunteering at a community garden in Bridgeport. I know you kept working in your field even after it chewed you up and spit you out. I know you showed up tonight without makeup because you were testing whether I'd see you or just a surface. He turned to face her. That tells me plenty. His hand moved closer to hers on the railing, not touching. Just there. Clara's throat tightened. She'd spent 2 years building walls, and this man she'd known for 3 hours was finding cracks she didn't know existed. Adrian's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and Clara caught the words before he could tilt it away. Blackridge Holdings. Board meeting reminder, 9 a.m. tomorrow. Her stomach dropped. You work in real estate? Yeah. He silenced the phone quickly. Development, acquisitions, the corporate side. Chicago-based? Headquartered here, yeah. His voice was too careful. But we have projects across the Midwest. Clara's instincts were screaming. The expensive suit, the corner booth at Brass Tack, the way he'd asked about Blackridge, like he was fishing for something specific. What company? Does it matter? Adrian's smile didn't reach his eyes. We're having a good conversation. Let's not ruin it with boring work talk. Red flags everywhere. But Clara was tired of being suspicious, tired of assuming the worst. Fine, she said. No work talk. He reached for her hand. She let him take it. His palm was warm, calloused in weird places for someone in a suit. She felt the ridge of old blisters near his thumb, like he'd done manual labor once, before the corporate climb. Can I see you again? Adrian asked. Clara should say no, should walk away before she got invested in someone who probably had secrets stacked like the skyline behind him. Instead, she said, yeah, I think I'd like that. They stood there on the Riverwalk, the city glittering around them, neither of them knowing that the man whose signature had destroyed her life was was holding her hand like she was something precious. Neither of them knowing that truth, when it came, would demolish everything they were building in this moment. Lou Malnati's on Wells Street smelled like yeast and tomato sauce, and the kind of unpretentious carbs that said we're not trying to impress anyone. Red vinyl booths, checkered plastic tablecloths, signed photos of Chicago sports legends covering every inch of wall space. Jordan, Ditka, Sandberg, all faded from decades of grease vapor and fluorescent lights. Adrian had laughed when Clara suggested it. "You testing me again?" he'd asked on the phone. "Maybe. You got a problem with tourist pizza?" "I'm from here too, Clara, born at Northwestern Memorial. Grew up in Lincoln Park." Lincoln Park. She'd made a noise. Figures. Now they sat across from each other, sharing a Lou's special, sausage, spinach, mushrooms buried under a blanket of cheese and chunky tomato sauce. Adrian had shown up in another suit, navy this time with a gray tie, like he didn't own jeans. He'd loosened the tie, though, top button undone. Progress. "You're doing it wrong," Clara said, watching him cut a slice with a fork and knife. "There's a wrong way to eat pizza. Use your hands, fold it, live a little." Adrian picked up the slice. Cheese immediately slid off onto his tie. Clara burst out laughing, the first time he'd heard her really laugh. Unguarded, head thrown back, the scar above her eyebrow crinkling. The sound filled the small booth, genuine and unpolished. "Okay, you were right." He wiped at the grease stain with a napkin. "This is humbling." "Welcome to how the other half lives." They talked through dinner. Adrian asked about her design philosophy. What made a building feel like home instead of just shelter? Clara found herself gesturing with her hands, explaining sightlines and how natural light could make a 600-square-foot apartment feel like breathing room. How front porches built community, better than any HOA newsletter. How Chicago's grid system was both liberating and isolating, depending on which side of the tracks you lived on. She pulled a pencil from her bag without thinking, started sketching on a paper napkin. A building facade, window arrangements. The automatic muscle memory of someone who'd spent years translating ideas into lines. "That thing looks like you've had it a while," Adrian said. Clara looked down. The Stadler 2B was worn smooth from years of use, sharpened to a stub. Her stomach clenched. "It's just an old pencil." She tried to put it away. "The one from the South Loop project?" How did he know that? She must have mentioned it. Must have. "Yeah." Her voice went quiet. "I kept it after everything went to shit. Don't really know why. Can't use it. Can't throw it away." Adrian leaned forward, elbows on the table. "But you just did. Use it." Clara stared at the napkin. She'd drawn maybe a dozen small sketches, without noticing. Building facades, courtyard layouts. The kind of details that lived in her fingers even when her brain said, "Give up." "Huh." She touched the pencil like it might burn her. "I didn't even think about it. Maybe that means something. Or maybe it means I got distracted by deep dish." But her voice lacked conviction. Her phone rang. Dora flashed on the screen. "Sorry, I need to take this." Clara slid out of the booth, walked toward the restaurant entrance. "Dora, everything okay?" "Mija, you sound happy." Dora's voice was warm, teasing, that particular blend of affection and knowing that came from watching someone grow up. "This is the man Sarah told me about?" Clara glanced back at the booth. Adrian was tactfully studying the menu, giving her privacy. "Maybe. It's complicated." "No, it's always complicated. That don't mean it's wrong." A pause. The sound of a Spanish-language telenovela in the background. Dora never missed her stories. "You drawing again?" Clara looked at the napkin sketches still on the table. "How did you—" "I can hear it in your voice. You sound like you got color back." Dora had known her since she was 26, fresh out of grad school and hungry to change the world, before Blackridge had crushed that hunger into ash. "Don't let fear make you small, Clara. The world needs what you build." "The world made it pretty clear it doesn't want what I build. One company don't speak for the whole world. You hear me?" Clara's throat tightened. "Yeah, I hear you." "Good. Now go finish your date. And Mija, don't sabotage this just because you scared." After they hung up, Clara returned to find Adrian had paid the check. "You didn't have to. I wanted to." He stood, grabbed his suit jacket from the booth. "Walk you home?" They took the blue line to Logan Square, standing close in the crowded evening train car. Rush hour commuters packed in tight, nurses coming off shift at Norwegian American, construction workers with hard hats clipped to their belts, kids in Lane Tech letter jackets. The automated voice announced stations in that flat robotic tone everyone in Chicago knew by heart. Adrian's hand rested on the pole next to hers, not touching, just close enough that she felt the heat from his skin. At California Avenue, a drunk guy stumbled into Adrian, mumbling apologies. Adrian steadied him gently, made sure he got to a seat. No irritation, no disgust, just quiet competence. Clara watched him, this man in a $1,000 suit treating a drunk stranger with the same care he'd shown her. It didn't compute. Rich guys didn't do that. Rich guys who worked in corporate real estate especially didn't do that. "You're staring," Adrian said, smiling. "Just trying to figure you out. Any luck?" "Not yet." When they reached her building, a 3-flat on Sawyer with sagging front steps and a cracked sidewalk, Clara turned to face him. The porch light was out again. She kept meaning to replace it. "This was nice," she said. "Unexpected, but nice." "Can I see you again?" Clara hesitated. The pencil was in her jacket pocket, that worn stub of graphite that had witnessed both her destruction and, apparently, her unconscious resurrection. She'd drawn tonight, actually drawn. For the first time in 2 years, her hands had moved without her brain screaming, "Don't bother." "Yeah," she said. "I think I'd like that." Adrian smiled, genuine, reaching his eyes this time. "Good." He kissed her cheek, gentle and brief, like he was afraid she'd spook, then waited until she was inside before walking back toward the train. Clara climbed the stairs to her second-floor apartment, unlocked the door, dropped her bag on the kitchen counter. The napkin sketches were still inside, crumpled but visible. She pulled them out, smoothed them flat. They weren't half bad. Outside on Sawyer Avenue, Adrian stopped half a block from Clara's building, phone pressed to his ear. "Sarah, it's Adrian. I need to tell her. She deserves to know." Sarah Chen's voice came through tight with worry. "Not yet. You tell her now. You lose any chance of making this right." "What am I making right?" "I'm lying to her every time I don't say who I am." "You're not lying. You're just—" I'm sitting there, listening to her talk about how Blackridge destroyed her life while I hold her hand, like I'm not the one who signed off on it. Adrian's voice cracked. "She drew tonight, Sarah. She hasn't designed anything in 2 years, and she drew because she felt safe with me. How am I supposed to— Give it time. Figure out how to fix what your company broke before you tell her you're the one who broke it. And if she finds out before I'm ready, then you lose her. But you're going to lose her anyway if you tell her now. At least this way you might have a chance." Adrian ended the call, stared at the brownstones lining the street, the sodium streetlights casting everything in orange. He'd been born 5 miles east of here, in a hospital that cost his parents more per night than Clara probably paid for her whole apartment. Different city, different world. His phone buzzed. A text from his CFO. "Board wants to move forward with Ontario Tower demolition. Need your signature Monday." Another project, another set of tenants who'd be displaced for luxury condos. He typed back, "Schedule a call. Need to review community impact first." The CFO's response was immediate. "Since when do we review that?" Adrian looked back at Clara's building, at the light that had just turned on in her second-floor window. "Since now," he typed. Inside her apartment, Clara's phone buzzed as she brushed her teeth. Text from Sarah. "I need to tell you something about Adrian. Can we meet tomorrow?" Clara frowned. Typed back with one hand, "Is something wrong?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Sarah, just meet me. Lose again. Noon." Clara stared at the message. The pencil was on her bathroom counter. She'd pulled it out of her jacket pocket, set it next to her toothbrush without thinking. That worn Statler 2B, sharpened down to almost nothing. She picked it up, rolled it between her fingers. For 2 years, it had been a monument to failure. Tonight, it had been a tool. Maybe Dora was right. Maybe the world wasn't done with her yet. But Sarah's text sat on her phone like a stone in her gut. "Just meet me." Nothing good ever came from a message like that. Sarah Chen was already at Lou Malnati's when Clara arrived, nursing an iced tea and looking like she hadn't slept in 2 days. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair pulled back in a messy ponytail instead of her usual sleek corporate bob. Her Armani blazer was wrinkled. "You look terrible," Clara said, sliding into the booth. "Thanks. Love you too." Sarah pushed a menu across the table. "Order something. This might take a while." Sarah, you're scaring me. Is this about Adrian? Because if you're about to tell me he's married or has a secret family, he's not married." Sarah's fingers drummed on the table. That nervous tick she'd had since law school. God, I wish it were that simple. Clara waited. Outside, a garbage truck beeped its way down Wells Street, the hydraulic whine of the compactor cutting through the lunch hour traffic noise. The smell of diesel exhaust drifted through the propped open door. "When I set you two up," Sarah began, I don't know what I thought. That maybe you'd balance each other out. That you needed someone who'd take you seriously, and he needed someone who wouldn't take his bullshit. Okay, still not following. Adrian works in real estate development. Clara's stomach tightened. Lots of people work in real estate. High-level real estate, major acquisitions, corporate restructuring. Sarah's jaw was clenched so tight Clara could see the muscle jumping. I can't tell you more than that without breaking attorney-client privilege. But I need you to be careful. Why are you doing this? 2 days ago, you were thrilled we were hitting it off. Because I didn't think... Sarah stopped. Started again. I didn't think you'd actually like him. I thought you'd go on one date, decide he was too corporate, too privileged, too whatever, and that would be that. But you're falling for him, Clara. I can see it. Clara wanted to deny it. Couldn't. The pencil in her jacket pocket felt heavy, accusatory. She'd brought it to lunch without thinking, like a talisman. He's not who you think he is, Sarah said quietly. Then who is he? Someone who operates in a world that chews up people like us and spits them out. Sarah reached across the table, grabbed Clara's hand. Just protect yourself, okay? Go slow. Keep your guard up. Clara pulled her hand back. You know what? No, I'm tired of protecting myself. I'm tired of assuming every man with money is automatically going to hurt me. Adrian has been nothing but respectful and genuine. Has he told you what company he works for? The question hung between them like smoke. We've been on 2 dates, Clara said defensively. We're not exchanging resumes. You told him about South Loop, about Blackridge. And so? So did he tell you anything about his work? Anything specific? Clara thought back. Vague references to meetings, corporate obligations, development projects across the Midwest. Nothing concrete. That doesn't mean he's hiding something. It means we talk about things that actually matter instead of boring job stuff. Sarah's expression said everything her words didn't. I'm not doing this. Clara stood, her chair scraping loud against the tile floor. I'm not letting you poison something good because you've been burned too many times. Adrian is not your ex-husband. He's not the Blackridge executives who screwed me over. He's just a guy, a good guy who sees me. Clara, thanks for lunch. Clara threw a 20 on the table. But I'm done letting fear run my life. She walked out into the November cold, hands shaking, pulled out her phone, text to Adrian. Weird question. What company do you work for? Sarah got weird about it, and now I'm curious. 3 dots appeared immediately, then stopped, then appeared again. Adrian, can we talk about this in person? Are you free tonight? Clara stared at the message. That wasn't a denial, but it wasn't an answer either. Clara, sure, your place or mine? Adrian, mine. I'll send you the address. 7 p.m. Clara, see you then. The address came through seconds later. 432E, Ontario Street, Penthouse, Streeterville, Ontario. That was... Jesus. That was $1 million territory. Clara's stomach dropped. She stood on the corner of Wells and North Avenue, tourists streaming past toward the Brown Line, and Googled the address with fingers that wouldn't stop shaking. 432 East Ontario, luxury high-rise. Penthouse units starting at $2.3 million. She clicked on building images, floor-to-ceiling windows, Lake Michigan views, marble lobby, doorman in a burgundy uniform. Then she saw it in one of the photos. A small brass plaque mounted next to the entrance. Blackridge Holdings, residential properties. The sidewalk tilted. Someone asked if she was okay. She wasn't. Clara stood in the marble lobby of 432 East, Ontario, staring at the brass plaque like it might change if she looked hard enough. Blackridge Holdings, residential properties. The letters didn't move. Didn't lie. The concierge had already called up. There was no turning back now. The elevator to the penthouse required keycard access. Adrian came down personally to get her. Still in his work clothes, charcoal suit, tie loosened, looking relieved until he saw her face. Clara. His voice was careful. What's wrong? She held up her phone, showing the Google search, the building, the plaque, the Blackridge logo. This building, it's owned by Blackridge. Yes, his jaw tightened. I know. You know? She laughed, brittle and sharp. Of course you know. You probably own the whole goddamn building. Clara. What company do you work for, Adrian? Her voice was ice. Say it. Ian, and the elevator doors opened onto a private foyer. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed Chicago's skyline glittering against the dark lake. The Hancock Building, Navy Pier's Ferris wheel, 1,000 points of light that felt like they were mocking her. Adrian didn't move to exit, just stood there, his hand holding the elevator door. Blackridge Holdings. The words came out quiet. I'm the CEO. The oxygen left Clara's lungs. She stumbled back against the elevator wall, the cold metal pressing into her spine. You're... She couldn't breathe. You're the one. You signed off on South Loop. You destroyed those families. You destroyed me. I didn't... He stopped, exhaled. No, that's not entirely true. I did sign off, but I didn't know the details when... Didn't know? Her voice rose, echoing in the marble foyer. You didn't know? 47 families, Adrian. I told you about Dora, about the community meetings and the broken promises, and you sat there and listened like you gave a shit when all along I was in cancer treatment. The words hit like a slap. What? Adrian's hand was white-knuckled on the elevator door. When Blackridge acquired South Loop, I'd just been diagnosed with stage 3 lymphoma. I was starting chemo. The board handled the acquisition. I signed documents my CFO put in front of me because I was trying not to die. Clara stared at him. The expensive apartment, the too thin frame she'd noticed at the board meeting, the way he'd lost weight between dates. That's not an excuse, he continued, voice rough. I know it's not. The company is my responsibility. What happened under my name is my fault. But I wasn't the one making day-to-day decisions. I was in a hospital room at Northwestern, throwing up from chemo, while my board accelerated projects to show strong numbers in case I didn't make it. So you're a victim too? Clara's voice dripped acid. Is that what you're telling me? No, I'm telling you I failed. Adrian stepped into the apartment. She followed, fury propelling her forward past furniture that probably cost more than her yearly salary. I delegated authority to people who prioritize profit over everything, and I didn't stop them because I was focused on surviving. When I came back, when I was in remission, I tried to fix it. I funded private restitution payments to displaced residents. I fired the executives who gutted the project. But you didn't go public. Clara's voice cracked. You had the power to clear my name, and you just didn't. Because I'm a coward. Adrian turned to face her. Because going public meant admitting I'd lost control of my own company. That I'd been weak. That cancer had made me fail every value I claimed to stand for. So I threw money at the problem, privately, and told myself that was enough. It wasn't enough. Tears burned Clara's eyes. Do you have any idea what you took from me? I can't get work in my own city. I moved to a shitty apartment because I couldn't afford rent anymore. I stopped designing, stopped creating, because every time I picked up a pencil, I thought about how I'd failed. In this world where power protects itself and the powerless pay the price, some betrayals cut deeper than others. While these events are fictionalized, the patterns they reveal are all too real. I know. Adrian's voice was barely audible. I've thought about it every day since I found your name in the project files. Since I realized the woman my board destroyed was everything I wanted my company to represent. Is that why you agreed to the blind date? Clara's laugh was broken. Sarah set this up. She knew who you were. Sarah thought if we met, I could find a way to make it right. That you deserved to know the truth from someone who actually... He stopped. Who actually what? Cared? Clara backed toward the elevator. You let me tell you everything. You held my hand while I cried about what Blackridge did to me. How could you? Because I'm selfish. Because being with you felt like the first real thing in my life. In years. His voice broke. Because I wanted to be the man you saw instead of the man I actually am. Clara slammed her hand on the elevator button. I need to leave. Clara, please, don't. The doors opened. You stole my career, my reputation, my life. And then you stole my trust by lying about who you were. I never lied. Omission is lying. She stepped inside. Adrian's hand shot out to stop the doors. You're exactly what I thought men like you were. You just hide it better. What do you want from me? His voice cracked. Tell me how to fix this. Clara met his eyes, saw genuine anguish there. It made her angrier. I want you to have never existed. The tears came hot and fast. But since I can't have that, I want you to leave me the hell alone. The doors closed on his face. Clara made it to the street before she broke down completely. Clara's phone rang at 2 a.m. She'd been staring at her ceiling for 3 hours, unable to sleep, replaying the penthouse confrontation on a loop. Mija, I just saw the news. Dora's voice was tight with controlled rage. Channel 7. They're saying Blackridge is demolishing the old South Loop site completely. Starting Monday morning, they're erasing everything. Clara sat up, adrenaline cutting through exhaustion. What? Every brick, every foundation, clearing it for luxury condos. The reporter said it's been in the works for months. The rage crystallized into something harder, colder. Dora, I need a favor. Can you make some calls? Monday morning, 6:30 a.m. The South Loop demolition site looked exactly like Clara remembered, except worse. 2 years of neglect had turned half-finished buildings into urban decay. Windows boarded with plywood, graffiti layering, graffiti, tags, political statements, someone's elaborate mural of a phoenix that had faded to ghost outlines. Chain-link fence topped with barbed wire. Behind it, bulldozers and excavators lined up like yellow metal predators. Clara stood at the fence, phone recording, speaking directly to camera. My name is Clara Whitmore, and 2 years ago, I was the lead urban designer on this project. 3 reporters had actually shown up. Michelle Garcia from ABC 7, a Sun-Times photographer, someone from Block Club Chicago. A small crowd had gathered behind them, mostly neighborhood people on their way to work who'd stopped to watch. Blackridge Holdings promised community redevelopment, Clara continued. Instead, they displaced 47 families, destroyed affordable housing, and made me the scapegoat when people fought back. Now they're bulldozing the evidence to build luxury condos worth $30 million. Michelle Garcia stepped forward, microphone extended. Ms. Whitmore, Blackridge claims this demolition is part of a legitimate development plan approved by the Zoning Commission. Do you have evidence of wrongdoing? I have the original community agreements promising affordable housing. Preservation, I have testimonies from displaced residents. I got testimony. Dora's voice cut through. She pushed through the crowd on her walker, breathing hard. Behind her came more faces Clara recognized. Miguel Torres, whose bodega had been on the ground floor. The Kim family, Lydia Washington, who'd organized the original tenant association. I'm Dora Martinez. Her voice shook but stayed strong. Lived at 3347 South Michigan for 42 years. Raised my kids there. Buried my husband from the church, 2 blocks over. Blackridge promised I could come back. Instead, they offered me $8,000 and told me to relocate to Cicero. The cameras swiveled. This was better footage. Real people, real losses. Miguel stepped up next. They told us market rate rent would be $1,400. Then it jumped to $3,800. Not one of us could afford it. A black Mercedes pulled up. Clara's stomach dropped before she even saw who stepped out. Adrian Cole emerged, flanked by 2 lawyers in matching navy suits. He looked wrecked. Dark circles, weight he couldn't afford to lose, like he'd aged 5 years in 3 days. His eyes found Clara's immediately. Mr. Cole! Michelle Garcia rushed toward him. Can you comment on Miss Whitmore's allegations? Adrian could destroy her right now. Sick as lawyers on her for NDA violations. Discredit her publicly. End this whole thing with one statement. Instead, he said, Ms. Whitmore was the lead designer on this project. She had integrity that my company failed to match. The lawyers stiffened. Clara's breath caught. The acquisition and development decisions made during my medical leave caused significant harm to this community, Adrian continued, voice steady. I take full responsibility for that failure of leadership. Are you saying Blackridge acted improperly? I'm saying we prioritized profit over people. Adrian looked directly at Clara. The demolition plan for today will proceed. We have contractual obligations to investors, but I'm announcing the formation of a community restoration foundation with $25 million in initial funding dedicated to affordable housing development in South Loop and surrounding neighborhoods. Clara's mind spun. What was he doing? The foundation will be independently operated, Adrian said. Leadership determined by community stakeholders, not Blackridge. We can't undo the damage, but we can commit to doing better. Michelle turned to Clara. Your response? Clara's voice came out hoarse. $25 million. Sounds impressive, until you realize Blackridge will make 3 times that from the luxury development they're building here. This is PR damage control, not accountability. What would accountability look like? Clara met Adrian's eyes across 10 feet of chain link and broken promises. Full public disclosure of the acquisition process. Names of every executive who signed off on displacing these families. Independent audit of Blackridge's affordable housing commitments citywide, and community control, not input, control over how that foundation money gets spent. Done, Adrian said. The lawyers looked like they might collapse. I'll have legal prepare the documentation, Adrian continued. Ms. Whitmore, I'd like you to chair the foundation. Absolutely not, ice in her voice. I don't work for you. Find someone else. Then I'll ask the community to elect their own leadership. He turned to Dora. Ms. Martinez, would you serve on the selection committee? Dora looked at Clara. Clara gave the smallest nod. Yeah, Dora said. I'll serve, but we're watching every dollar. Fair enough. Adrian walked back to the Mercedes without another word. Clara's phone exploded with notifications. The live stream had gone viral. 40,000 views, climbing. 6 months later, Clara stood in a converted warehouse space in Pilsen, staring at architectural renderings pinned to every available surface. The South Loop Community Restoration Foundation had an office now, secondhand furniture, computers that actually worked, walls covered in blueprints and zoning maps. Dora's nephew had done the electrical at cost. The drop ceiling tiles were water-stained, but the space was theirs. Clara's team worked 80-hour weeks fueled by spite and possibility. 3 urban planners who'd been blacklisted like her, 2 community organizers, 1 nonprofit lawyer who'd left a big firm to do work that mattered. The worn Staedtler pencil sat on her desk next to a framed photo of the original South Loop families. She used it every day now, drafting blueprints, annotating zoning maps, sketching out the neighborhoods they were fighting to build. The stub was almost too small to sharpen, but she couldn't stop using it. We got the variance approval. Marcus walked in waving papers, grinning. West Side project is greenlit. 40 units, rent-controlled, family-sized, breaking ground in 8 weeks. Clara allowed herself a smile. How'd the alderman take it? He wasn't thrilled about the affordability covenants, but Yuki shut him down fast. Marcus shook his head. That Jenner and block retainer Adrian set up is no joke. Those lawyers are terrifying. The smile faded at Adrian's name. She hadn't seen him since the press conference. He'd kept his word, stayed completely out of foundation operations. But his fingerprints were everywhere. The legal team that bulldozed zoning challenges, the bank that approved construction loans, despite the foundation having zero credit history. The city officials who suddenly returned her calls, Adrian Cole's invisible hand, smoothing her path, it made her furious. We don't need his help, she muttered. We absolutely need his help. Marcus was blunt. Clara, you're brilliant, but you can't fight City Hall without resources. And those resources came from him. As penance, not charity. Does the distinction matter to the families who will live in those 40 units? Clara didn't answer. Her phone buzzed. Email from Yuki Tanaka. Subject Q3 Foundation Board Meeting. Adrian Cole attendance request. Adrian has requested permission to attend next week's board meeting as an observer, not asking for speaking rights or votes. Just to see the work you're doing. Your call entirely. Clara stared at the email for a full minute, then typed, he can come. But he doesn't speak unless directly addressed. The board meeting was in the warehouse office. Folding chairs in a circle, coffee from the corner bodega. Dora sat across from Clara, reading glasses on her nose, reviewing construction budgets. Adrian arrived exactly on time. Dark jeans, simple button-down, no suit. He looked smaller somehow, thinner. The cancer treatment weight loss had never fully reversed. Mr. Cole, Dora's voice was neutral. Thanks for coming. Thank you for allowing it. He took a seat in the back corner, away from the table. Clara forced herself to focus. West Side variance. South Shore rezoning. Henderson Park Community Garden. 40 minutes of updates, budgets, timelines. Adrian didn't say a word, just listened, taking occasional notes on his phone. Near the end, Dora looked at him directly. You got questions? He seemed surprised to be addressed. Just one. The South Shore project, you're preserving existing buildings instead of demolishing and rebuilding. That's more expensive. Why? Clara answered before anyone else could. Because those buildings have history. People raised families there. You can't put a price on that kind of continuity. Even if new construction would house more people. Housing more people doesn't mean shit if you erase the community that made the neighborhood worth living in. Her voice was sharp. But you wouldn't understand that, would you? You see buildings as assets, not homes. Adrian held her gaze. I'm learning the difference. The room went silent. Good, Dora said finally. Because we're watching. You don't get to buy redemption. You earn it through years of showing up. I know. Adrian stood. Thank you for your time. He left without another word. After he was gone, Dora turned to Clara. He looked different to you? What do you mean? Thinner, tired, like he carrying something heavy. Good, Clara said, but her voice lacked conviction. Clara was locking up the office when she noticed something on her desk. A manila envelope. No label. No note. Inside. A full set of internal Blackridge documents from the South Loop acquisition. Board meeting minutes. Email chains. The names of every executive who'd signed off on the displacement. Richard Mendoza, Patricia Grant, 7 others. And a post-it note in Adrian's handwriting. You asked for full disclosure. Here it is. Do with it what you think is right. Clara's hands shook as she flipped through the pages. This was everything. Enough to bury Blackridge in lawsuits for years. Enough to destroy Adrian completely. She sat down hard in her desk chair, the stapler pencil rolling across the blueprints in front of her. One decision, 2 paths, revenge or rebuilding. She pulled out her phone, called Dora. We need to talk strategy. Clara sat in Dora's small Pilsen apartment, the Blackridge documents spread across the kitchen table like evidence at a trial. The walls were covered in family photos, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, 42 years of life, in a place Dora had been forced to leave. This is enough. Clara tapped the email from Richard Mendoza, Blackridge's former CFO. He wrote, existing tenants are not our target demographic. This is proof of intent. Dora poured them both coffee from a stovetop espresso pot, thick and Cuban style. The smell filled the small kitchen. Burnt sugar, dark roast, cardamom. So what you gonna do with it? What do you think I should do? Leak it to the press? Watch Blackridge collapse under lawsuits and investigations? Watch Adrian lose everything like I did? That what you want? Revenge? Clara's voice broke. Yes. God, yes. I want him to know what it feels like to be destroyed publicly while everyone watches. Dora was quiet for a long moment, stirring sugar into her coffee. The spoon clinked against the ceramic, a sound Clara associated with this kitchen, with tamales on Christmas Eve, with Dora's wisdom delivered over cafecito. You know what I learned, mija? Living through the revolution, coming here with nothing, losing my husband, getting pushed out of my home? She looked up. Revenge feels good for about 5 minutes. Then you left with the same empty space you had before. And so I just let him off the hook? I didn't say that. Dora pushed a document across the table. The foundation charter Clara had drafted in pencil months ago. You got something bigger than revenge now. 40 units breaking ground on the west side. South Shore project, saving those buildings. A whole foundation that could do this work for decades. With his money, Clara said bitterly. With community power. His money is just the tool. You're the architect. Dora's eyes were sharp. You decide what gets built. Clara stared at the documents, at Mendoza's emails, at the board minutes showing conscious disregard for community welfare. If I leak this, Blackridge might collapse. The foundation funding could disappear. All those projects. Gone, Dora finished. And you back where you started, with nothing but anger. But if I don't, he wins. He keeps his empire, his reputation. Does he? Dora gestured toward the window, toward the city beyond. Look at that man, Clara. You saw him at the board meeting. He looked like someone winning to you? Clara thought about Adrian in the back corner. The dark circles, the weight loss, the way he'd sat silent, taking every barb she'd thrown. He's eating himself alive with guilt, Dora said. You don't gotta destroy him. He doing that on his own. Then what do I do with these? You use them as leverage. You tell him, these stay private as long as Blackridge commits to real change. Affordable housing quotas, community oversight on every development, transparent reporting. You make him transform the whole company, not just throw money at one foundation. Clara's mind raced. That was bigger than revenge. That was structural change that could affect thousands of families across Chicago. And if he refuses, then you leak everything and watch him burn. But you give him the choice first. Clara picked up the worn Stadler pencil, rolling it between her fingers. The wood was smooth as glass from constant use. I need to see him. I know. I don't know if I can do this without hating him. Dora smiled sadly. You don't gotta stop hating him, mija. You just gotta decide what you building with that hate. A weapon? Or a foundation? Clara pulled out her phone. Text to Adrian. We need to meet. Your place. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. The response came in seconds. I'll be there. The Chicago City Council chambers were packed. Clara sat in the third row next to Dora, Marcus, and the foundation team. Word had spread that Blackridge Holdings was making a major announcement about affordable housing commitments. Aldermen filled the curved desks at the front, press lined the walls, cameras ready. This was the kind of meeting that made or broke political careers. Adrian Cole walked to the podium alone. No lawyers flanking him this time, no PR team, just him, a folder of documents, and a microphone. My name is Adrian Cole, CEO of Blackridge Holdings. I'm here to make a public statement about corporate accountability. The room went quiet. Camera shutters clicked rapid fire. 2 years ago, during my cancer treatment, my company acquired the South Loop Community Revitalization Project. Under my legal signature, with my authority, Blackridge displaced 47 families, broke community agreements, and prioritized profit over people. Reporters scribbled notes. Aldermen leaned forward. I was not personally involved in day-to-day operations during my illness, but that's not an excuse. As CEO, I am responsible for every action taken under Blackridge's name. The decisions made by my CFO, Richard Mendoza, and my COO, Patricia Grant, decisions I failed to supervise or reverse, caused real harm to real families. Claire's breath caught. He was naming them, publicly. Both executives have been terminated, but personnel changes aren't enough. This requires structural transformation of how Blackridge operates. Adrian opened the folder. Clara recognized her handwriting, the conditions she'd drafted in pencil 2 nights ago. Effective immediately, Blackridge Holdings commits to the following legally binding requirements. He read word for word from her document. 1. 25% of all residential developments will be permanently affordable housing. 2. Community oversight boards with full veto power over development plans. 3. Public quarterly reporting of all development activities, including profit margins and displacement impact. 4. A permanent community restoration fund with annual contributions of 10% of Blackridge's net profits. 5. Independent third-party audits with findings published publicly and penalties for non-compliance, paid directly to affected communities. The aldermen were silent. This wasn't typical corporate PR. This was surrender. These commitments are written into Blackridge's corporate charter, enforceable by shareholders and community stakeholders. I am personally guaranteeing compliance by placing 40% of my ownership stake in a community trust administered by, he looked directly at Clara Whitmore, and a board of her choosing. As the room erupted, reporters shouting questions, aldermen conferring urgently, Adrian continued over the chaos. Ms. Whitmore was the lead designer on South Loop. She lost her career because my company made her a scapegoat. She had the integrity to do the right thing, and I destroyed her professional reputation for it. Every eye turned toward Clara. She now holds documents that could bankrupt Blackridge in lawsuits. Internal emails proving my executives knowingly displaced vulnerable families. Board minutes showing conscious disregard for community welfare. Adrian's hands gripped the podium. She could destroy my company, my reputation, everything I've built. Instead, she's giving me the chance to rebuild, not for my sake, for the communities Blackridge has harmed. He stepped back. I'll take questions. Mr. Cole, why confess publicly? Because private penance isn't accountability. The public deserves to know what happened and how we're fixing it. But won't these restrictions tank your stock price? Probably. If our shareholders value short-term profit over ethical development, they should sell. Ms. Whitmore? A reporter called out. Your response? Clara stood slowly. Adrian stepped aside. She walked to the podium, pulled out the worn Statler pencil, held it up for everyone to see. This pencil designed the original South Loop project, the one that was supposed to preserve community, not destroy it. Her voice carried through the chambers. I kept it after everything fell apart because I couldn't let go of what I'd tried to build. She said it on the podium. Now I'm using it again, to draft charters for community oversight boards, to design affordable housing that doesn't erase history, to rebuild what was broken. Clara looked at Adrian. Mr. Cole didn't ask for forgiveness today. He asked for the chance to do better. That's not the same thing. 15 months after the city council meeting, Clara sat in the restored South Loop building, not the one Blackridge had destroyed, but the one she'd rebuilt on the same block. 32 units of affordable housing, community meeting space on the ground floor, a plaque by the entrance, Dora Martinez Community Center. The Statler pencil sat on her desk, finally sharpened to nothing. A stub too small to hold, too worn to use. She'd drafted blueprints for 6 different projects with that pencil. Westside, South Shore, Pilsen, Henderson Park, 2 more breaking ground next month. She placed it in a small, shadow box frame, along with a photo of the original South Loop families and a copy of the foundation charter, hung it on the wall. What you doing? Marcus leaned in the doorway. Preserving history. Clara stepped back, studying the frame. This pencil drew the original designs, the ones that were supposed to matter. Then it drew the ones that actually did. Poetic. You going to the South Shore ribbon cutting tomorrow? Which building? The preservation project, the one Adrian's been funding. Clara's chest tightened at his name. I don't know. He's not coming. I told the team specifically he'd stay away so you'd feel comfortable. That sounded like Adrian. A year of distance. Board meetings in the back row. Signatures on checks. Silence. Then yeah, I'll be there. The next morning, Clara stood in front of the restored South Shore building, original brick cleaned and pointed. Historical details preserved. 40 families, many of them original residents, getting keys to apartments they could actually afford. Dora cut the ribbon with ceremony scissors, grinning wide. This is what real development looks like? Applause. News cameras, politicians making speeches. Clara found an envelope tucked under her windshield wiper. Clara, the board voted yesterday to extend our affordable housing commitment to 40%, voluntarily, because the data shows community-first development is more profitable long-term when you measure success by neighborhood stability instead of quarterly returns. You changed how an entire industry thinks. Developers across Chicago are watching what you built and realizing there's another way. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know you won, not because you destroyed me, because you transformed what winning looks like. A. Attached. Blackridge Holdings amended corporate charter. 40% affordable housing. Permanent community oversight. Clara's phone rang. Unknown number. Clara Whitmore. Ms. Whitmore, this is Jennifer Park from the MacArthur Foundation. We'd like to discuss nominating you for a fellowship. Your work in community-led urban development has been extraordinary. MacArthur, the Genius Grant. I'm honored. Thank you. That evening, Clara sat on Dora's balcony in Pilsen, watching the sun set over Chicago's skyline. You know what my dad used to say? Clara began. Don't tell me what you value. Show me your budget and your calendar, and I'll tell you what you value. And Dora smiled. Smart man. Adrian spent years building an empire. Now he's spending years building neighborhoods back. That's not redemption. That's just finally showing up. You still think about him? Clara was quiet. Sometimes. Not with rage anymore. Just a curiosity. About whether people can really change. Can they? I don't know, but buildings can. Neighborhoods can. Systems can. Clara looked at the pencil stub in her pocket. She'd brought it from the office, not quite ready to leave it behind permanently. Maybe that's enough. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. The South Shore families want to thank you personally. Block party next Saturday. Will you come? She showed Dora. You gonna go? Yeah, I think I will. Because that's what Chicago taught you, if you stayed long enough. This city didn't reward pretty lies or perfect endings. It rewarded the people who stayed standing when the wind off the lake tried to knock them down. Clara had shown up to that blind date without makeup because she was done performing. Turned out, the bare face wasn't about him at all. It was about her finally being free. Money can construct skylines, power can demolish neighborhoods, but only accountability and compassion can rebuild trust. Did I forgive Adrian Cole? No, maybe I never will. But I built 40 affordable housing units on the ruins of what his company destroyed. Then 60 more. Then 100. That's not forgiveness, that's transformation. And maybe, in the end, that matters more. Clara lost everything and still chose building over burning. If that moved you, drop a comment about a time you chose the harder, better path. When you could have destroyed someone but chose to create instead. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Let's build a thread of people who chose grace over grudges,